I am Dareth Solon, former Field Marshal of the Arkan Dominion. I was once the blade of a regime that saw freedom as disorder, that believed galaxies function best when strangled by control. My record was clean, flawless even. 17 campaigns, 9 orbital purges, 5 cities turned to lightless husks. I was awarded 3 blood stars, and yet they felt weightless on my chest. After a while, medals stopped feeling like achievements and start feeling like chains. They thought I retired. The truth was simpler. I ran. I left everything, my rank, my command deck, my name in the outer rims, where forgotten men go to disappear. But the Dominion has long arms, and one day they reached into the dirt and pulled me back up. Just one job, they said. One last mission before they'd wipe my record and erase every trace of what I'd done. The contract was off record, assigned only by spoken word. It came wrapped in whispers and trembling hands. Target's name is Ramila. She's not registered in any known genetic database, not Dominion-born, possibly not born at all. She surfaced on Cytherium Null deep in the exile belts. You're to retrieve her alive. No one used the word kill, but I knew what they wanted. A creature. A trophy. Something to silence the Council and prove that the Dominion could still claim dominion over the impossible. Cytherium Null was a planet I had only heard of in shipwreck rumors and nightmare logs, blackened soil, violent storms, and broken structures that hummed with ancient energy. No beacons, no mapped terrain, nothing but silence and smoke. It took me 17 days to reach the gravity well. My ship, the Rook's End, cracked through the atmosphere like a wounded hawk. The surface was worse than expected. Trees fossilized in mid-bloom, lightning caught between clouds as if paused by time. And deeper in the jungle, rising like the bones of dead giants, stood the ruins of something not built by human hands. That's where I saw her. She wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was waiting. Ramila stood on the broken steps of a temple that pulsed with dormant light, her silhouette glowing in the violet haze. Her armor wasn't metal. It looked like living crystal, reshaping around her body with every movement. She held no weapon in her hand, but her eyes burned like dying stars. She turned her head before I moved. "You're late," she said. No surprise, no fear. She spoke like she had known I was coming, like she had let me. I didn't respond. My orders were clear. I activated the GravNet system, and twin drones burst from my shoulders, unleashing a web of ion-charged filaments that snaked through the air. The trap wasn't meant to kill, just paralyze. But she moved, not like a fighter, like a storm. Her body twisted through the air with impossible grace, her palm colliding with one drone and turning it into dust. The other she redirected into a column of light. The sky cracked open with sound. I had 3 seconds to make a decision. I fired the Eclipse Pulse. It was my last resort, a directional energy beam strong enough to drop a shipbird mid-flight. It struck her mid-chest. The light around her dimmed. She collapsed. I approached slowly, my rifle primed and humming. As I knelt beside her, ready to bind her hands with phase-lock cuffs, she opened her eyes and smiled. Not in hatred, not in defiance, in recognition. "You were supposed to come sooner," she whispered. I froze. "What are you?" I asked. "The question," she replied, "is what are you, Dareth Solon?" How did she know my name? I couldn't speak. My fingers hovered over the cuffs. I had taken prisoners before, dozens. I had never hesitated. But with her, something old inside me cracked. Maybe it was the way her voice felt like it echoed through time. Maybe it was the way her body radiated power even while subdued. Or maybe, after all the blood I'd spilled, I saw someone who wasn't a threat but a mirror. I locked her wrists. I carried her onto the Rook's End. I didn't call command. I didn't upload the capture file. I sat across from her cell, watching her through the tinted glass as she watched me. She said nothing else that night. Neither did I. But I knew then, this wasn't a mission. This was a reckoning. And Ramila would be the one to decide if I deserved to walk away from war, or be buried in its ruins. We stayed in orbit above Cytherium Null for 3 days. I told myself I was calibrating the engines, running diagnostics, preparing for the deep jump to Dominion Command. But deep down, I knew I was lying. Ramila hadn't spoken since the moment I locked her in the containment cell. She sat on the steel bench like a statue, her wrists cuffed in radiant coils. The cuffs should have left her sedated, numb. But she was wide awake, still, watching. I kept finding excuses to pass by the cell. Every time her eyes found me, that same look, deep, unreadable, ancient, like she was studying not my face, but the decay behind my choices. I couldn't stand it. On the 4th rotation, I unlocked the cell's interface. Protocol be damned. You hungry? I asked. No answer. I'm not going to poison you. That's not how this ends. Still nothing. You knew my name, Ramila. Why? She lifted her head slightly. For the first time since her capture, she spoke. Quiet, low, but precise. Because I remember you. I froze. We've never met. Not like this. Not in this life. My fingers hovered near the exit key. What does that mean? She stood, and the cuffs sparked lightly as they resisted her movement. The light inside the cell flickered. Subtle, but wrong. Your past bleeds across timelines, Dareth Solon. You were a soldier long before this empire was born. You fought under many names. This one just happens to end with me. I should have walked away. I should have sedated her, delivered her to the Dominion, and collected my redemption. Instead, I stayed. I sat opposite the glass. Why does the Dominion want you so badly? Ramila smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Because they don't understand what I am, and tyrants destroy what they fear. You're not human. I scanned your physiology. Correct. Then what are you? She stepped forward and the ship groaned slightly beneath. Her presence, like metal sensing pressure it wasn't built to bear. I am the last fragment of a race erased before your species learned to name stars. My kind didn't war with weapons. We warred with memory. My throat dried. You mean telepathy? More. We remember futures, possible ones, broken ones, beautiful ones, and we decide which to give birth to. My fingers clenched into fists. You're saying you see what's going to happen? No, I see what might happen, and I choose which seed to water. There was a long silence. I felt the ship drift gently along Cytherium's magnetic slipstream. Outside, pale lightning curved through the sky like veins on a dying god's face. So why me? I asked. Ramila's voice softened. Because you still have a soul, Dareth. Beneath all the armor, the blood, the obedience. They haven't killed it. Not yet. She stepped close to the glass. The containment field shimmered faintly. And if I fail? If I'm taken back? If the Dominion silences me? You are the last echo. The one chance left to undo what's coming. I'm not a hero, I said. I'm not a savior. I've ended more lives than I can remember. Then it's time you remember. The lights dimmed across the cell. The ship's alarms blinked red for less than a second. No threat detected. Just interference. Or her. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I stood by the observation panel, watching Ramila's cell. She had returned to the bench, her eyes closed, lips moving in silence. Maybe a prayer, maybe a memory. I reviewed the data packet sent by command. It had no return instructions, only coordinates. The Dominion wanted her alive, but not for trial, dissection, study, elimination. They were afraid. And maybe I was too. But not of her, of what I was becoming around her. When the jump drive finally recharged, I entered the command key to set the route. My hand hovered over the confirmation. Deliver Ramila to Dominion Core. Route locked. Estimated arrival. 4 days. I canceled the command and inputted new coordinates. Zenthari Drift. A lawless, off-grid system. Dominion signals couldn't penetrate it. The ship rumbled as it shifted trajectory. Ramila opened her eyes. She looked at me. And for the first time, I didn't feel like her captor. I felt like her ally. No turning back now. I once believed there was no such thing as turning back, only death or duty. But as the Rook's End sailed into the lawless abyss of Zenthari Drift, I realized there was a third path: betrayal. The moment I changed our course, I became a fugitive. The Dominion would know within hours. They always knew. Surveillance nodes, hidden tags. The ship was an old model, but not old enough to escape their eyes. Still, I didn't warn Ramila. I didn't need to. She stood behind me before I even heard. Her cell open. "You've changed our course," she said. I turned. Her cuffs were gone, disassembled, molecularly. My security systems hadn't even flickered. "You could have escaped the moment I locked you in. I could have killed you too." Her tone wasn't threatening. It was factual. I didn't. Ask how. I didn't want the answer. Instead, I simply nodded. "Where we're headed, the Dominion has no reach," I said. "At least not yet." "Then we're not going far enough," she replied. She walked past me, barefoot, graceful, terrifying in her calm. She looked out the viewport into the starless nothing that was Zenthari Drift. Storms twisted in the distance like cosmic serpents. Ships lost here were rarely found. "Why me, Ramila?" I asked again. "Why did you let me take you?" She touched the glass, fingers tracing patterns in the frost gathering near the panel. "Because in one future you became the man who saved 10 billion souls. And in another? You ended twice that number." Later that night, I found her in the ship's abandoned medical bay. She was studying the old Dominion data cores I had salvaged, archives of war footage, captured rebellion transmissions, even my own mission reports. She was watching my past unravel before me. "These are the men they made you," she said, "but not the one you are." "That man doesn't exist," I muttered. "He died years ago. On a world called Scale 4. "You killed him yourself," she corrected. "Because he forgot how to feel." Her words cut deeper than blades. I approached the diagnostic table and sat across from her. She didn't flinch. The air between us wasn't tense. It was thick with recognition. Like something older than either of us had reawakened and was waiting to be named. "The Dominion will come for us," I said. "They already are." She tapped on the console, showing me something horrifying. A black pulse beacon, a stealth frequency only deployed during Dominion assassinations, had activated behind us. We were being tracked by an elite squad known as the Writhe. Killers without memories, just living weapons. "We can't fight them," I said. "No," Ramila replied. "But we don't need to. You just have to remember." "Remember what?" "Who you were before the uniform, before the blood, before they molded your spine to hold a flag instead of a soul." My jaw clenched. "There's nothing to remember." "There is," she whispered. "You buried it. But I can unearth it." She stood, placing 2 fingers against my forehead. And everything shifted. I fell into a place that wasn't the ship, wasn't real, and yet was more true than anything. I had lived. I saw myself as a child on a planet called Leora Vex, green fields, twin suns, a mother who sang to the stars. I saw myself building machines not for war, but to purify rivers. My hands were small, clean. I saw the day the Dominion came. I remembered the collar, the conscription camps, the training that replaced kindness with killing. I remembered the screams of recruits as they were rewired to obey. I remembered myself, and I collapsed. When I awoke, Ramila was still there, kneeling beside me. "I didn't show you pain," she said. "I showed you truth." My face was wet. I hadn't cried in years. "They took everything," I whispered. "They didn't take me," she replied. She reached out her hand. Not as a prisoner, not as a superior, as someone who had walked through death and chosen mercy. "Then let's burn them down," I said. She smiled, not with triumph, with hope. "No, let's free the ones still sleeping." Outside, the void trembled. The Wraith were coming, but so were we. Together. The storm arrived without warning, not in the sky, but in the air inside the Rook's End, thickening, folding, crushing sound into silence. Dominion ships didn't make ripples. They came like omens, cloaked in dark matter shells, masked behind, fractured light. They didn't hail us. They didn't warn us. They wanted me dead, and they wanted Ramila in chains. The Wraith weren't just assassins. They were erased beings, soldiers stripped of identity, history, and thought. Their eyes replaced with chrono-steel lenses, hearts replaced with pulse engines. They did not speak. They existed only to end. 3 of them emerged through the forward. Dock, human shapes cloaked in exo-armor laced with living circuitry. They walked like gravity bent around them, smooth and silent. I had encountered them once before, years ago, when a fellow officer went rogue. The Wraith were deployed. He disappeared. Within 30 seconds of contact, no remains, no message, and now they were here. For me, I fired first. 3 explosive rounds, straight to center mass. The lead Wraith absorbed the hits like mist. His body shimmered, adjusted, reformed. The bullets didn't wound. They taught. "They're learning," Ramila warned behind me. "They always learn." She stepped forward, her body flaring with translucent armor, grown from her own skin, alive and singing. Her palms began to glow, the color of dying moons. I had no time to be amazed. The Wraith lunged. What followed wasn't a battle. It was collapse. The hallway cracked under pressure. Gravity fluctuated as the ship's stabilizers failed. Ramila moved faster than any human I'd seen, spinning, weaving, releasing arcs of psionic force that warped metal and shattered one Wraith unit into a storm of sparks. But they adapted. The second one caught her wrist mid-spin and slammed her into the wall. I shouted and charged, slamming my rifle butt into its spine. It turned without flinching, its face inches from mine, empty, soulless, like looking into the man I used to be. Pain exploded across my shoulder. The third Wraith had embedded a pulse. Dagger into my joint. My arm went dead. I dropped to my knees, breath stolen by the agony. Ramila, but she had already recovered. With a scream that cracked the ship's interior, she unleashed a pulse I had no name for. A burst of energy that wasn't light, wasn't flame, wasn't air. It was memory. I felt it, saw it. The Wraith stopped, trembled, for the first time in their artificial lives. They hesitated. Ramila stepped toward them, eyes gleaming like the core of a newborn star. "Return to dust," she whispered, and with a flick of her fingers, their armor disintegrated. Their bodies collapsed inward, silent implosions, gone. The ship groaned beneath us. I collapsed against the bulkhead, clutching my arm. "What? What did you do to them?" I gasped. "I gave them back what was stolen," she said softly. And they chose to end. That hit deeper than any strike. I looked at her, not as an enemy, not as a mystery, but as a force I could no longer deny. "You didn't kill them," I said. "No, I freed them." She knelt beside me, her hand touching my deadened shoulder. Heat flooded through my nerves. Not fire. Something older. Healing I didn't know was possible. "They won't stop, Dareth," she said. "Neither will I." We didn't speak after that. She helped me to my feet. And together, we walked into the bridge, battered, burned, but unbroken. In the hours that followed, we drifted into the Grave Belt, a region filled with wrecked star fleets and forgotten war machines. No signals. No beacons, no life, only the echoes of what once was. We stayed silent until she spoke again. "There's something you must know." "What?" I asked. She hesitated, not from fear, from sorrow. The Dominion doesn't just fear me. They built their empire to hunt my kind. I turned toward her. You're saying this was never about me? You're part of it, she said gently. But I am the last of the Varelen core, the last one who remembers the truth about how your empire began. And what truth is that? That your leaders didn't rise from order. They stole power from my ancestors. They turned our memories into weapons, and now they fear I might unlock the final piece. My breath caught. What piece? She looked at me, not as a savior, not as a soldier, but as a witness to a rising storm. You. Her words struck deeper than a blade. You. Not as an accusation, not as praise, as revelation. I leaned back in the pilot's chair, the dim red glow of the cockpit casting Ramila in shadow. Her armor had receded into her skin again, like it had never existed, only her eyes held the storm. You think I'm some kind of, what? Prophecy? I asked. My voice was hoarse, disbelieving. Not prophecy, she said calmly. You're a scar. I blinked. That's supposed to be comforting. She turned toward the viewport, where hundreds of shattered vessels drifted among stars that no longer glowed, ships without names, battles without survivors. When my kind still ruled the memory spires, she said, we didn't fight for territory. We fought for balance. We planted memory into the fabric of time. We built peace into the bones of the cosmos. And the Dominion? I asked. Your Dominion stole our archive. Her words chilled the cabin, not because of the claim, but because something inside me recognized it. They erased our voices, she continued, tore apart our timelines, and embedded our memory weapons into their military code. They didn't just kill us, they became us, corrupted, twisted. I remembered those weapons. Dominion tacticals called them neurostrikes, data pulse bombs that didn't destroy cities. They rewrote them, turned allies against each other. Reset loyalty, collapsed belief. No one ever explained where that tech had come from until now. Why me? I asked again more quietly. Why not someone cleaner, better? Because you're broken, she said. I flinched. You've seen the Dominion from the inside, Ramila went on. You were its blade, and you walked away. Not because you were told, but because your soul remembered something deeper than command. I looked down at my scarred palms. Weapons. Always weapons. So what happens now? Now, she said, I give you the choice my people never had. She reached toward the console and inserted a crystal, faintly glowing, humming softly like a pulse. The cockpit dimmed. Holograms bloomed across the air, swirling galaxies, ancient scripts, fragments of memory encoded in language I couldn't read but somehow felt. A voice, not hers, began to speak. Male, female, neither, all. The final thread shall be handed to one who knows the taste of loyalty and the acid of betrayal. Only through them shall the wound be reopened and the stars bled clean. Ramila spoke over it. This crystal holds the location of the last memory spire. It's hidden within the black fold, a collapsing sector beyond the Dominion's mapped systems. It's dying. And when it does, so does the last hope of undoing what was stolen. And you want me to go there, I said. She nodded. With me. To do what? To restore what was taken, or to burn it all down? I didn't answer. Not right away. I stared into the holographic storm, feeling the weight of every ruined ship outside, the silence of 1,000 captains who thought they were fighting for peace. And I remembered Scale 4. I remembered the child I couldn't save. The surrendering medic I executed because command said so. The family in the Skyport bunker, wiped out by a drone I personally launched. I remembered what it meant to believe in the Dominion, and I felt sick. They'll hunt us, I said finally. No matter where we run, they won't stop until we're ashes. Ramila's gaze never wavered. Then we make the ashes mean something. We charted the course that night, coordinates locked, the black fold. No one who entered it returned. It twisted time, ruptured reality, and devoured signals. But within it, buried in the collapse, was the last spire, the last truth, the heart of a lie that had consumed galaxies. Ramila looked at me one last time before the jump. Once we cross, there is no returning. I'm not going back, I said. Then let us carve a new truth. The ship trembled as the engines powered for breach. And in that moment, with stars stretching into needles of light, I stopped seeing her as an alien. I saw her as the only real thing left in a universe of illusions. And for the first time in my life, I stepped into the unknown by choice. The stars no longer looked like stars. As the Rook's End approached the edge of the black fold, light itself began to deform. Constellations I had known my entire life smeared into serpents of color, lines of ancient fire twisting in real time. The ship's navigation system tried to make sense of it, tried to realign reality, but it was like trying to rewrite a dream with math. We'd reached a space where rules had no meaning, where cause and effect were suggestions, and we kept going. I spent most of that day on the bridge in silence. The engines groaned under strain, pulling heat from dimensional rifts, fighting physics with sheer willpower. I'd disabled all external comms. The Dominion couldn't find us here, but we couldn't call for help either. Ramila hadn't spoken since we crossed into the pre-fold orbit. She stayed in the ship's rear chamber, seated before an ancient data crystal she'd taken from the Spire of Sorun, something she'd never explained and I hadn't dared to ask about. Not until now. I stepped into the chamber. She didn't look at me. "You're stalling," she said before I even spoke. "I'm thinking," I replied, "about what you'll lose, or what you'll become." I hesitated. "Both." She stood. The glow from the crystal faded. She turned toward me, and I realized again just how alien she truly was. Not because of her appearance, but because she felt like she had seen too much, and somehow still chose hope. "There's something you haven't told me," I said. "Something about what happens if we reach the spire." She tilted her head slightly, and then, for the first time since I'd met her, she looked uncertain. "You're not the only one at the center of this," she said. "The fold, it remembers me too." "What does that mean?" She stepped forward slowly. "It means I may not come out, not whole, not as I am." "Because of the spire?" "Because of what I was before I wore this skin." Her hands tightened at her sides. "My people didn't die, Dareth. We became something else. Our minds were digitized, our memories bound in time-fold sequences. I'm not a survivor. I'm a reconstruction of every woman who once defended the spires. A memory in flesh. The last echo." My breath caught in my chest. "You're saying you're not alive?" "I am," she said. "Just not the way you understand life." She turned her gaze toward the ship's forward viewport, where the fold pulsed like a heart between dimensions. "I have purpose. I have will. But if the spire accepts your presence, if it recognizes your soul, mine will unravel." I took a step back, angry, heartbroken, hollow. "You knew this from the beginning." "Yes." "And you didn't tell me?" "Would you have come this far if I had?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know. I walked the corridors of the ship for hours afterward, wandering without destination, haunted by the idea that the woman who had saved me might vanish the moment I fulfilled her purpose. In the cargo bay, I passed by the old Dominion crate we'd recovered on Cytherium Null, what I'd always assumed was a relic from a forgotten battle. But something inside called to me. I opened it. Inside was no weapon, no armor, no device. It was a mirror, not a glass reflection, but a suspended stream of memory preserved from the early Spire era. It activated as I approached, syncing with my neural signature. And then I saw him. Not me, but another version of me. Eyes clear, face unscarred, standing beside a group of peace architects in the era before the Dominion rose. I saw laughter, unity, passion, a different life. One the Dominion never allowed, a life I could have had. This is a living memory, Ramila said from behind me. One of the last pure echoes from before your world forgot itself. Why show me this now? I asked. Because that man still exists inside you. And if you enter the spire, he may be born again. But not with you. Not with me, she said quietly. My purpose ends where yours begins. That night, I sat alone in the cockpit, watching the fold pulse in the dark like a god breathing. The ship vibrated under the strain of gravitational coils. We had less than a day before it would collapse completely. I thought of everything I'd done, the planets I'd burned, the orders I'd followed, the people I'd silenced in the name of order. And I thought of Ramila, not the alien, not the weapon, but the only soul who ever saw mine and didn't look away. When she entered the bridge hours later, she didn't speak. She just sat beside me, shoulder brushing mine. We watched the fold together in silence. You know what I miss? I said finally. What? The smell of rain on Leora Vex, before the Dominion came, before everything. Then remember it, she said. I do. She placed her hand over mine. Then let that be what lives. The alarms rang faintly. The fold's heart was opening. We stood together, no war cries, no final goodbyes. Just two people who had been broken and found meaning inside the ruins. Ready? She asked. I was born in fire, I said, but I'd rather die in truth. She nodded, and together, we flew into the last memory that could rewrite the stars. There is no word for what the black fold feels like from the inside, only sensations your mind can't arrange. Time doesn't move here. It folds over itself like an ancient book with pages missing, half remembered and half invented. We emerged into it like two ghosts, one forged by war, the other sculpted by memory. The Rook's End fell silent as soon as we passed through the fold's threshold. No systems, no hum of engine cores. Even gravity became inconsistent, rising and falling like breath. The stars around us flickered, like candlelight behind shattered glass, and ahead, suspended in a void thicker than shadow, stood the memory spire, not built, but grown. It resembled a living monument, spiraling like a double helix formed from obsidian and starlight. Tendrils of light drifted outward from it, pulsing in ancient rhythm. Ramila didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her face was still, calm. But I could feel the energy radiating off her like warmth from a dying sun. She didn't tremble. I did. I followed her out of the ship and onto what felt like a path of thought made solid, a bridge of fragmented time. Each step whispered something different, a battle I fought, a scream I caused, a girl I spared, a world I failed to save. This place remembered me. The spire recognizes you, Ramila said, her voice strangely clear in the silence. That's not a comfort, I muttered. It is for what must come next. Inside the spire, there was no architecture in any human sense. Just flowing, waves of light and memory, suspended in the shape of a cathedral made from air and gravity. Walls shifted. Voices echoed from the past. Some I knew. Many I didn't. The floor opened like a blooming flower, and at its center stood a crystalline basin, glowing, alive, rotating slowly above a black core that spun with galaxies. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. Ramila stepped to the edge and withdrew a fragment from her body, the seed of continuum, a shard pulsing with memory. Not just hers, all of her kind, the last remaining truth. This is it, she said. This rewrites what the Dominion built, but it also ends me. I turned sharply. No, we find another way. There is no other way, Dareth. You said we could rebuild, I argued, that there was hope. Hope doesn't mean I live through it, she said gently. It means you carry it forward. She smiled. and it shattered me. The kind of smile that precedes farewell. The kind that makes memory heavier than gravity. You can't ask me to lose you, I whispered. I'm not asking. I'm choosing. She stepped closer and touched my chest. You made me more than a memory, Dareth. You gave me a reason to be more than a weapon. Now let me return that. Gift, I tried to stop her. I grabbed her wrist. I won't let you vanish. She leaned forward, forehead against mine. I was never meant to last. I'm the echo of a people who whispered peace into stars. But you can speak it aloud. She turned, and without ceremony, placed the seed into the heart of the spire. Everything exploded in silence. No sound, no pain, just light, pure, raw, rewriting the laws of memory and time. I watched as the Dominion's architecture collapsed across the galaxy. Cities designed on stolen blueprints faded like smoke. Weapons born from manipulated minds vanished. Whole legions dropped their arms, suddenly remembering who they were before the indoctrination. And I saw her, Ramila, standing in the center of the storm, unmoving, unwavering, and then fading, not burning, not breaking, just leaving. Gone. Screamed. Not aloud, but deep within, ripping at something primal. I staggered to the edge of the basin, but she was no longer there. Just light, warm and infinite. When I woke, I was in the Rook's End, adrift in normal space. The black fold was gone. My wounds were healed. My scars remained. The Dominion? Erased from memory. No one remembered it ever existed. Except me. I found a small green planet near a quiet star and built a life from wood and stone. I planted trees. I raised bookshelves. I slept without armor. But every night I looked up and I remembered Ramila, not just the warrior, not just the memory, but the woman who gave me back my soul. Sometimes when the wind bends just right, I hear her voice in the leaves. You are not the man they built. You are the man you chose to become. And I whisper back to the stars. I'm still choosing.